High Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewing port. His four arms moved gracefully as he adjusted the controls of his command chair. The Zephyrian Collective had ruled this part of space for over 3,000 years. 7 different alien species worked together in perfect harmony, each bringing their own skills to create the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever seen. The bridge was a work of art. Everything was made from smooth, white metal that seemed to glow with its own light. The crew moved with practiced precision, their movements flowing like a dance. Each officer knew exactly what to do and when to do it. This was how things should be, ordered, peaceful, and beautiful. "Commander," said his communications officer, a tall being with silver skin and large black eyes. "We have received the weekly reports from our scout ships." Vextar nodded. The scouts always brought news of new worlds to explore or primitive species to study. Most of the time, these reports were boring. The galaxy was full of young races that had barely learned to leave their home planets. "Read the summary," Vextar ordered. "The scouts have found another primitive world in Sector 791. The species calls itself human and their planet Earth. They have only recently developed space travel. Their technology is crude and their society is chaotic." Several officers on the bridge made sounds of disgust. Chaos was the worst thing any civilized being could imagine. The collective prided itself on order and cooperation. "What else?" Vexitar asked. The communications officer looked uncomfortable. "Sir, the humans appear to spend most of their time fighting each other. They have divided their single planet into hundreds of separate groups that constantly argue and compete. They have weapons capable of destroying their entire world, yet they continue to threaten each other with them." Vextar shook his head in disappointment. "Typical primitives. They will either destroy themselves or eventually learn to work together. Either way, they are not our concern. File the report and move on." But the officer was not finished. "Sir, there is one more thing. The scout ship captain made an unusual comment. He said the humans' military tactics were disturbing." "Disturbing how?" "They do not follow any logical patterns. Their soldiers act independently instead of following group orders. They use deception and tricks instead of honorable combat. The captain said watching their historical battles made him feel sick." Vextar laughed, a musical sound that filled the bridge. "Of course their methods are disturbing. They are savages who have not learned the proper way to conduct warfare. When the collective goes to war, we do so with honor and dignity. Our battles are beautiful works of art, not the crude brawling of primitives." The other officers nodded in agreement. The collective's way of war was indeed beautiful. Their ships moved in perfect formations, like dancers in the void of space. Each battle followed ancient rules of engagement that ensured both sides fought with honor. Victory went to the side with better technology and tactics, not to whoever could be most brutal or sneaky. "Forget about the humans," Vextar said. "They will remain primitive for centuries if they survive at all. We have more important matters to discuss." But as he spoke these words, alarms suddenly rang throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and the beautiful white bridge was bathed in warning colors. Vextar's 4 hands moved quickly over his controls as his crew rushed to their stations. "Report," he commanded. The sensor officer, a being with blue skin and tentacles instead of arms, looked up from his station with fear in his large eyes. "Commander, we are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of our space. Something is coming through from outside our galaxy." "Show me," Vextar ordered. The main viewing screen changed to show the readings from their most powerful sensors. What they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Massive shapes were emerging from the darkness between galaxies. They were not ships in any way the collective understood ships. Instead, they looked like living creatures, made of metal and flesh, combined in impossible ways. "How many?" Vextar asked quietly. Thousands, sir. Maybe millions. They are spreading out and moving toward our outer colonies. Vextar studied the images carefully. The things moved wrong. They did not fly in formations or follow any pattern he could understand. They seemed to flow through space like a disease spreading through a body. "Send a message to the Collective Council immediately," he ordered. "Tell them we have an unknown contact situation and prepare the Third Fleet for deployment." As his crew worked to carry out his orders, Vextar felt confident. Whatever these things were, they would learn to respect the power of the Collective. The Third Fleet was one of their finest, with ships that had never been defeated in battle. Their weapons could destroy planets, and their shields could stop any known attack. He watched the alien shapes on the screen and smiled. Soon, these invaders would face the organized might of civilization itself. They would learn that the galaxy belonged to those who had earned it through thousands of years of progress and cooperation. Within hours, reports started coming in from the outer colonies. The signals were confused and full of static, but the words that came through made Vextar's blood run cold. "They're not fighting like anything we've ever seen," came one broken transmission. "They ignore our formations. They attack from impossible angles. They're adapting to our weapons faster than we can fire them." Then the signals stopped completely. Vextar stared at the empty screen where the colony signals had been. For the first time in his long life, he felt a chill of real fear, but he pushed it down. The Collective had survived everything the galaxy had thrown at them. They would survive this too. They had to. Admiral Thexnor watched his beautiful fleet arrange itself into the diamond formation. 200 ships moved with perfect precision, each one taking its exact position in the ancient battle pattern. The formation had been used by the Collective for over 1,000 years and had never failed to win a battle. His flagship, the Eternal Glory, sat at the center of the diamond. Around it, the other ships formed neat lines and angles, creating a geometric masterpiece against the stars. Every captain knew their role. Every weapon had its designated target. Every movement had been planned down to the smallest detail. "Sir," called his tactical officer, "the enemy fleet is approaching. Estimated contact in 30 minutes. Thexnor nodded calmly. Through his viewing port, he could see the alien ships in the distance. They looked wrong, like someone had taken machinery and living tissue and melted them together. But Thexnor was not worried. Strange appearance meant nothing. The Collective had faced unusual enemies before. "Maintain formation," he ordered. "All ships are to follow Battle Protocol 7. We will advance in stages, allowing each group to support the others." Victory through order and cooperation. The bridge crew repeated the protocol numbers back to him in perfect unison. This was how civilized beings fought wars. Everyone knew their job. Everyone worked together. Everyone followed the plan. As the enemy ships grew closer, Thexnor could see them more clearly. They moved in no pattern at all. Some ships raced ahead while others lagged behind. Some flew upside down or sideways. It looked like complete chaos, which made Thexnor smile. Chaos always lost to order in the end. "Begin Stage 1, he commanded. The front section of his diamond formation moved forward, their weapons charging with bright blue light. The enemy ships should have responded by forming their own defensive lines. Instead, they did something that made Thexnor's blood freeze. They scattered. The enemy ships broke apart like a school of fish when a predator approaches. They flew in all directions, some diving below the Collective formation, others racing over the top, and still others spinning to attack from the sides. Thexnor had never seen anything like it. "Sir," his tactical officer said with confusion in his voice, "they are not following any known battle formation. Our targeting systems cannot predict their movements." "Impossible," Thexnor replied. "Every intelligent species follows logical patterns in battle. Adjust our formation to counter their tactics." But before his ships could respond, the enemy struck. The scattered alien vessels attacked from 12 different directions at once. They ignored the collective's heavy shields and instead targeted the joints between ship sections. They fired strange weapons that seemed to eat through metal like acid. Worst of all, they rammed their own ships into collective vessels without any regard for their own safety. "They are using suicide attacks," his communications officer reported with horror. "They are destroying their own ships to damage ours." Thexnor could not believe what he was seeing. No civilized species ever used suicide attacks. It went against every rule of honorable warfare. Wars were supposed to be won through superior technology and tactics, not through mindless sacrifice. "All ships, reform into defensive pattern 12, he ordered. "We must maintain our formation." But his ships could not reform fast enough. The enemy vessels moved like wild animals, attacking wherever they saw weakness. When the collective ships tried to turn to face one group of attackers, another group would strike from behind. It was like trying to fight smoke. One by one, his beautiful ships began to explode. The Eternal Wisdom, a cruiser that had served the collective for 300 years, was torn apart by 3 small enemy ships that simply flew into it at full speed. The Perfect Harmony lost its engines when an alien vessel somehow got past its shields and landed on its hull like a parasite. "Sir," his tactical officer shouted over the noise of alarms, "the enemy ships are changing. They are adapting to our weapons." Thexnor looked at his tactical display and felt his heart stop. The alien ships that had survived the first few minutes of battle were different now. Their hulls had grown thicker, where the collective weapons had hit them. Their weapons had changed shape and were now firing energy beams that cut through collective shields like paper. "How is that possible?" he whispered. "Unknown, sir, but they are learning from every shot we fire. They share the information instantly across their entire fleet." The battle became a nightmare. Every time the collective tried a new weapon or tactic, the enemy adapted within minutes. When Thexnor ordered his ships to use their most powerful plasma cannons, the alien vessels grew reflective armor that bounced the beams back at the collective ships. When he tried to ram them with his own vessels, they simply moved apart and reformed around his ships like water flowing around a stone. After 2 hours of fighting, Thexnor had to face the horrible truth. His fleet was losing. Ships that had never been defeated in centuries of warfare were being torn apart by enemies that fought like madmen. The beautiful diamond formation was in ruins. "All ships retreat," he finally ordered, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. "Fall back to rally point 7. But even the retreat went wrong. The enemy ships followed the fleeing collective vessels, attacking them from behind and from the sides. They showed no mercy and gave no quarter. By the time the survivors reached safety, Thexnor had lost more than half his fleet. He sat in his command chair, staring at the damage reports that flooded his screens. Ships destroyed, thousands of crew members dead. The most advanced military force in the galaxy had been beaten by creatures that fought like wild beasts. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving reports from other battle groups. The 3rd Fleet has been completely destroyed. The 7th Fleet lost 80% of its ships. The enemy is advancing on 3 more colony worlds." Thexnor closed his eyes and tried to think. Everything he had been taught about warfare was useless against these creatures. They did not follow rules. They did not care about honor. They adapted faster than any biological organism should be able to. For the first time in 1,000 years, the collective was losing a war. And Thexnor had no idea how to win it. In his heart, he knew that something fundamental had changed. The age of ordered, civilized warfare was over. But he did not yet understand what would replace it. The Emergency Council chamber had never felt so cold. High Commander Vextar looked around the circular room at the faces of the 7 species that made up the collective. For the first time in 3,000 years, those faces showed real fear. The holographic display in the center of the room showed a map of their territory. Red markers indicated worlds that had been destroyed by the Devourers. That was what they were calling the invaders now. There were so many red markers that the map looked like it was bleeding. "We have lost 43 colony worlds," reported Council Leader Zenthara, her normally melodious voice flat with despair. 12 major industrial centers, 3 fleet academies. The Devourers are advancing toward our core systems faster than we can evacuate them." Admiral Thexnor, his pride broken by his defeat, stared at the table in front of him. "Our traditional tactics are useless," he said quietly. "They adapt to everything we throw at them. They learn from our attacks faster than we can develop new ones. We cannot win fighting the way we always have." Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber, but no one offered solutions. How could they? The collective's entire military doctrine was based on thousands of years of successful warfare. They had perfected the art of organized, honorable combat. Now they were being told that everything they knew was wrong. Junior strategist Kelnara stood up from her seat at the back of the chamber. She was young for a council member, and her species was not known for bold speaking. But desperate times called for desperate actions. "I have studied the battle reports," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "And I have been researching other species in our database. I believe there may be a solution." Council Leader Zenthara gestured for her to continue. "Speak, young strategist. We will listen to any idea." Kelnara took a deep breath. "The humans." The reaction was immediate. Several council members made sounds of disgust. Others began talking angrily among themselves. Admiral Thexnor looked up from the table with shock on his face. "The humans?" he said with disbelief. "Those primitive savages? What could they possibly offer us?" Kelnara activated her personal display, showing images and data she had gathered. "I have been studying their military history. They have something we do not." "And what is that?" asked Zenthara. "Experience losing." The chamber fell silent. Kelnara continued, her confidence growing as she spoke. "Every species in the collective has dominated their home world. We all became the top predators on our planets before we reached space. We learned to win through superior technology and organization." She changed the display to show images of human conflicts. But humans are different. They evolved alongside other predators. They spent their entire history fighting enemies that were stronger, faster, or more numerous than they were. They learned to survive by being unpredictable. Admiral Thexnor stood up angrily. "You want us to ask for help from creatures that fight without honor? From beings that use deception and chaos as weapons?" "Yes," Kelnara said simply, "because those weapons work." She brought up more data, records from the human scout observations. "Look at their tactics. They call it asymmetric warfare. They specialize in fighting enemies more powerful than themselves. They use surprise, misdirection, and individual initiative instead of rigid formations." Council Leader Zenthara studied the images with interest. "These battle records, their soldiers act independently during combat. They change plans in the middle of fighting. How do they coordinate anything?" "They do not coordinate the way we do," Kelnara explained. "Instead of following detailed plans, they follow general objectives and adapt in real time. Each soldier thinks for themselves and reacts to changing conditions." The idea was so alien that many council members could not even understand it. The collective had always succeeded through perfect coordination and following established procedures. The thought of allowing individual soldiers to make their own decisions in battle was terrifying. "This is madness," declared Representative Korth of the hegemony species. "We would be abandoning everything that makes us civilized. I would rather die with honor than live by copying barbarians." Several other representatives nodded in agreement, but Kelnara was not finished. "With respect, Representative Korth, you may get your wish. Our current projection shows that all collective worlds will be destroyed within 6 months if we cannot stop the Devourers. Honor will mean nothing if we are all dead. She changed the display again, showing tactical analyses of human warfare. The humans have one advantage we desperately need. They think like the Devourers. Explain, ordered Zenthara. Both species fight chaotically. Both use unpredictable tactics. Both adapt quickly to changing situations. The difference is that humans do it by choice, as a strategy. They can think like chaos while still maintaining their intelligence and purpose. Admiral Thexnor shook his head. Even if what you say is true, why would the humans help us? We have treated them as primitives. We have ignored them and dismissed their culture. Why should they care if we live or die? Kelnara looked around the chamber at all the proud faces. Because we will ask them to, properly. We will offer them something they have never had, which is recognition, respect, and if necessary, she paused, knowing her next words would shock everyone. Leadership! The chamber exploded into angry voices. Representatives from 3 species immediately stood up and walked toward the exit. I will not be commanded by primitives, shouted Representative Korth as he left. When the noise died down, only 4 species remained in the chamber. Zenthara looked at the empty seats sadly. The vote will be close, she said. The choice is simple, Kelnara replied. We can maintain our pride and die as civilized beings, or we can swallow our pride and live as something new. Hours of debate followed. In the end, the vote was 4 species in favor of contacting Earth, 3 opposed. It was enough. As the council session ended, Admiral Thexnor approached Kelnara. If we do this, he said quietly, we will never be the same. The collective as we know it will die. Kelnara looked at the red markers covering their territorial map. Admiral, the collective as we know it is already dead. The question is whether we can become something else, something that can survive. 2 days later, a message was transmitted toward Earth. It was simple and direct. This is the Zephyrian Collective. We request immediate military assistance against an existential threat. We are prepared to place our forces under human command if you will help us survive. For a civilization that had never asked anyone for help in 3,000 years, the words felt like poison. But they were sent anyway, because the alternative was extinction. Now all they could do was wait and hope that the primitive humans would be willing to help their former superiors learn how to fight dirty. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UEF Defiance, watching the collective fleet through the main viewer. The alien ships were beautiful, all smooth curves and glowing metal, arranged in perfect geometric patterns that looked like art sculptures floating in space. They made her own fleet look like a collection of spare parts held together with determination and prayer. Impressive, said Commander Rodriguez, her second in command. I can see why they thought they were superior to everyone else. Chen nodded. The human fleet was smaller than what the collective had requested. Only 50 ships compared to their remaining 300. But Chen had not brought ships to impress anyone. She had brought ships to fight. The Defiance itself was typical of human military design. Angular, blocky, and covered with weapon systems that had been added, modified, and replaced so many times that the ship looked like a metal patchwork quilt. Next to the elegant collective vessels, it looked crude and primitive, but Chen knew looks could be deceiving. Incoming transmission from the collective flagship, reported her communications officer. Put it through. The main screen changed to show High Commander Vexitar standing on his pristine bridge. Chen could see the discomfort in his alien features as he spoke. Admiral Chen, welcome to Collective Space. We are grateful for your assistance. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. Commander Vexitar, Chen replied, keeping her voice neutral. We received your message. Before we begin, I need to understand the tactical situation. Show me everything. For the next 2 hours, the collective officers presented their intelligence on the Devourers. Chen watched battle recordings, studied ship designs, and reviewed tactical analyses. What she saw made her both impressed and worried. "Your enemy is good," she finally said. "They adapt fast, they learn from every encounter, and they do not care about losses. But I see several mistakes in how you have been fighting them." Vextar's forearms stiffened. "Mistakes? Our tactics have been proven over centuries of warfare." Chen smiled grimly. "That is your first mistake. You are fighting them like they are a normal enemy. But they are not normal, so normal tactics will not work." She activated her own tactical display, showing the human fleet arrangements. Instead of neat formations, the human ships were spread out in what looked like random clusters. "Your ships move in predictable patterns," Chen continued. "Beautiful patterns, but predictable. Your enemy has learned to counter them. We need to teach you how to be unpredictable." Admiral Thexnor, who had been silent during the briefing, finally spoke. "Are you suggesting we abandon formation flying? That is madness. How would we coordinate attacks? How would we avoid firing on our own ships?" "Simple," Chen replied. "We trust our people to make good decisions." The alien officers looked at each other with confusion. The concept of trusting individual ship captains to act independently was completely foreign to them. "I propose a joint operation," Chen said. "A small engagement where our fleets work together. You will see how we operate, and we will see how well you can adapt." 3 days later, they got their chance. A small Devourer fleet was detected approaching a mining station. The combined force moved to intercept 300 collective ships and 50 human vessels. Chen watched from her bridge as the collective fleet formed its battle lines, perfect diamonds and triangles of ships, each vessel precisely positioned. It was beautiful and completely wrong for fighting the Devourers. "Human fleet, begin Tactic 7, Chen ordered. Immediately her ships scattered. They broke formation and spread out across a wide area, each ship moving independently. Some raced ahead of the main force, others hung back, and several moved to positions that seemed to serve no purpose at all. "Admiral," came a confused transmission from Vextar. "Your ships are out of position. They are not following any recognizable pattern." "Exactly," Chen replied. "Now watch and learn." The Devourer fleet approached in their usual chaotic swarm. As expected, they adapted their tactics to counter the collective's organized formations. But when they tried to predict human movements, they failed. The scattered human ships were not following any plan that could be analyzed or countered. The human ship Relentless suddenly accelerated past the collective lines and dove straight into the enemy formation. Instead of engaging in a proper weapons duel, it used its engines to ram 2 Devourer vessels while firing its guns in all directions. The alien ships, programmed to expect logical behavior, could not process such seemingly suicidal tactics. Meanwhile, the frigate Stubborn Ghost appeared behind the Devourer fleet, having somehow circled around during the confusion. It targeted the enemy command ship with precise fire while 3 other human vessels converged from different angles. "How did that frigate get behind them?" Vextar asked with amazement. "Captain Morrison saw an opportunity and took it," Chen explained. "He did not wait for orders or check with the fleet plan. He saw what needed to be done and did it." The battle was chaos, but controlled chaos. Human ships attacked from unexpected directions, used unusual tactics, and constantly changed their approach. When one tactic stopped working, individual captains immediately tried something else. The most shocking moment came when the destroyer Iron Will deliberately rammed a Devourer ship, then used its remaining weapons to destroy 2 more enemies before its crew evacuated to nearby vessels. The collective officers could not believe what they were seeing. "They sacrificed their ship," Thexanor said with horror, "just like the enemy does." "No," Chen corrected. "The enemy sacrifices ships mindlessly. We sacrifice them strategically. Captain Torres chose to ram that ship because it would save the mining station and protect his people's evacuation. It was his choice, made in the moment, based on the situation he faced. When the battle ended, the Devourer fleet had been destroyed with minimal human and collective losses. But Chen could see that the alien officers were deeply disturbed by what they had witnessed. "Your methods work," Vexitar admitted reluctantly. "But they go against everything we believe about proper warfare." "Your beliefs almost got you extinct," Chen replied bluntly. "If you want to survive, you need to learn new beliefs." Over the following weeks, human advisors were assigned to every collective ship. They taught alien crews how to think independently, how to adapt in real time, and how to use unorthodox tactics. It was like teaching mathematicians to finger paint, painful but necessary. Some collective species could not adapt. They withdrew from the alliance entirely, choosing to face the Devourers alone rather than abandon their principles. Chen watched their proud ships jump away and knew she would probably never see them again. But others stayed and learned. They began to understand that survival mattered more than honor, that winning ugly was better than losing beautifully, that sometimes the greatest strength was the willingness to appear weak. As Chen watched a collective cruiser successfully complete an accidental collision maneuver that destroyed 3 enemy ships, she smiled. The aliens were finally learning to fight dirty. It was about time. 6 months after the humans arrived, High Commander Vextar no longer recognized his own fleet. The beautiful formations were gone, replaced by loose clusters of ships that moved like hunting packs. The pristine white bridges now had scorch marks and battle damage that crews wore like badges of honor. Most shocking of all, his officers had learned to smile when they broke the rules. "Contact with Devourer main fleet confirmed," reported his tactical officer, a young collective member who now spoke with the casual confidence he had learned from human advisors. "They are using formation pattern 12, the one where they pretend to retreat and then surround us." Vextar nodded. After months of fighting alongside humans, his people had learned to recognize Devourer tactics just as well as their enemies recognized collective patterns. The difference was that the collective had learned to think beyond patterns entirely. "Signal the fleet," Vextar ordered. "Initiate Plan Chaos." The name would have horrified him a year ago. Now it made him feel proud. Plan Chaos was something no proper military mind would have ever conceived, a strategy that relied on coordinated confusion, deliberate mistakes, and carefully planned accidents. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communications system from her flagship. "All human vessels, begin random walk protocol. Make them think we do not know what we are doing." Across the combined fleet, ships began moving in seemingly random directions. Some accelerated toward the enemy, others turned away as if retreating. A few human vessels actually fired on empty space, while collective ships broadcast false distress signals. To anyone watching, it looked like the Allied fleet was falling apart in panic. The Devourer fleet responded exactly as predicted. They abandoned their complex formation and raced forward to attack what appeared to be a broken and confused enemy. Their adaptation protocols kicked in, preparing them to counter a retreating force. "Now," Chen ordered quietly. The chaos suddenly revealed its purpose. Ships that had seemed to be retreating were actually in perfect positions to attack the enemy flanks. Vessels firing at empty space had been targeting specific coordinates where Devourer ships would be in 30 seconds. The false distress signals had drawn the enemy into a carefully prepared kill zone. But the real surprise was what the collective crews did next. Instead of following human orders, they improvised their own additions to the plan. Captain Mortek of the Eternal Wisdom suddenly broke formation and charged straight at the Devourer command ship, not because he was ordered to, but because he saw an opportunity. Lieutenant Kelvas used her ship's damaged engines to create a false explosion that confused 3 enemy vessels into attacking each other. The battle became a masterpiece of controlled madness. Every time the Devourers adapted to one tactic, someone would try something completely different. Human and collective crews worked together not by following the same plan, but by sharing the same goal and trusting each other to find creative ways to achieve it. When the Devourer command ship tried to escape, it found its path blocked by the transport vessel Peaceful Trader, a ship that should have been nowhere near the fighting. Captain Yell Noth had abandoned his assigned position to pursue a hunch, and his hunch had been correct. "Target the command ship," Vextar ordered. "All ships, converge on my signal." But before he could give the signal, something unexpected happened. The collective ship Bright Honor deliberately rammed the Devourer command vessel, destroying both ships instantly. Captain Zexani had made the choice on his own, sacrificing his ship and crew to ensure the enemy could not escape. A year ago, such an action would have been considered a tragic waste. Now, Vextar felt only pride. Zexani had seen what needed to be done and done it, without waiting for permission or approval. He had acted like a human. When the battle ended, the Devourer main fleet was destroyed, but as Vextar studied the casualty reports, he felt a deep sadness alongside his victory. They had won, but the cost had been enormous, not just in ships and lives, but in something more precious. "Admiral Chen," he called over the communication system. "Request permission to meet in person." An hour later, Chen materialized on his bridge via transport beam. She looked tired but satisfied, the way humans always looked after a successful battle. Vextar gestured for her to join him at the viewing port, where they could see the debris field that marked their victory. "We won," Chen said simply. "Yes," Vextar replied. "But look what we have become." Through the viewing port, they could see collective ships moving in loose, undisciplined formations. Crews were celebrating with wild enthusiasm instead of quiet dignity. Some ships were even playing human music over their communication channels. "A year ago, we were the most civilized military force in the galaxy," Vextar continued. "We fought with honor, dignity, and grace. Now we fight like survivors," Chen finished. "You are still civilized, Vextar. You have just learned that civilization means adapting to survive, not holding on to pretty traditions that will get you killed." Vextar's 4 arms gestured toward his bridge, where his officers were laughing and joking with their human advisors. "Some of our people cannot accept what we have become. 3 more species left the collective this week. They would rather face extinction alone than continue fighting this way." Chen nodded sadly. She had seen the proud alien fleets depart, choosing death over dishonor. It was a choice she could respect, but not understand. "Change is always painful," she said, "but the alternative was worse." "Was it?" Vexatar asked. "Sometimes I wonder if we saved the collective or destroyed it. We are not the same people who asked for your help." Chen looked at him carefully. "Do you regret it? Do you wish you had never called us?" Vexatar was quiet for a long time, watching his transformed fleet. Finally, he spoke. "No, I do not regret it. We asked for your help because we had no choice. You taught us that sometimes having no choice is exactly what you need to discover who you really are." "And who are you now?" Vextar smiled, an expression he had learned from humans. "We are survivors. We are people who will do whatever it takes to protect what matters most. We are no longer the proud, elegant civilization we once were. But we are alive, and our children will have a future." Chen placed a hand on his shoulder, another human gesture that had spread throughout the collective fleet. "That is all any of us can ask for." As they watched, a young collective officer approached them. It was junior strategist Kel Nara, now promoted to admiral after her species' leaders had fled, rather than serve under human guidance. "Admirals," she said with a crisp salute that somehow combined human informality with collective respect. "We have received a long-range transmission. Another species, the Valdoran Empire, is requesting military assistance against an unknown enemy." Vexitar and Chen exchanged looks. The Valdorans were known for their pride and their belief in traditional warfare. "Are they willing to accept human command?" Chen asked. Kelnara smiled. "They specifically requested that we bring our human advisors. Word has spread about our methods. Other species are beginning to understand that survival matters more than pride." Vextar felt something he had not experienced in years: hope for the future. Not for a return to the old ways, but for a future where civilizations could learn from each other instead of destroying each other. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "It is time to teach another proud species how to fight dirty and survive." As the combined human and collective fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Vextar reflected on what they had learned. Asking Earth for aid had indeed been a betrayal of everything they once believed. But sometimes betrayal of your past self is the only way to become who you need to be. The collective was dead, but something new and stronger had taken its place. A partnership between species that had learned to value survival over pride, effectiveness over tradition, and life over honor. It was not the galaxy they had wanted, but it was the galaxy they had chosen to live in.